In a world of high finance and corporate gamesmanship, Isabella Reed, CEO of the formidable Reed Equity Group, found herself playing a high-stakes chess match. Her opponent was Richard Sterling, a man whose ambition was as vast as a glass and steel monument. He called his company Apex Innovations. The prize, a $1.5 billion investment. The mission, to see if Sterling's celebrated success was built on a foundation of genuine innovation or a deeply toxic culture. Isabella arrived at the Apex headquarters in her modest sedan, a deliberate act of humility in a world of luxury cars. The receptionist, Brenda, sized her up with a practiced, dismissive glance. "Are you here for an administrative interview?" she asked, gesturing toward the back of the room, far from the VIP lounge where two white men were being served coffee. Isabella noted the subtle slight, but remained unbothered. She was here for a different kind of interview, one that required more than a resume. After a 50-minute wait, a calculated move to show her place, Sterling's assistant led her not to the grand boardroom, but to a small, windowless room. Richard Sterling sat scrolling on his phone, surrounded by three other white male executives, a predictable tableau of power and exclusion. The unspoken assumptions, the knowing smirks. Isabella had seen this play before. She decided to let them continue their performance. "So," Sterling began, his voice dripping with condescension, "you're here about our diversity program?" He couldn't fathom that a black woman could be there for any other reason. Isabella, calm and collected, corrected him. "I'm here to discuss a significant investment opportunity." She had already done her homework. Apex's prospectus mentioned a proprietary deep learning architecture, but Isabella, a master of corporate forensics, had found inconsistencies. She peppered Sterling with questions about inference latency, Q2 financials, and a 22% drop in R&D spending that clashed with his claims of expanded research. Sterling's smug mask began to slip. His attempts to deflect with talk of diversity initiatives and condescending questions about how she took her coffee were transparent ploys to reassert his threatened authority. The meeting moved to a larger conference room, where Sterling brought in reinforcements, including Victor Cole, the company's diversity officer, the only other black person Isabella had seen in the building. As Sterling launched into a rehearsed speech, Isabella cut him off with sharp, pointed questions about minority retention rates and promotions. Her questions were met with dismissive waves of Sterling's hand. Just as the charade was reaching its peak, 5 more white male executives swaggered in. Sterling's introduction of Isabella was a calculated insult. "Gentlemen, this is Isabella. She's here to talk about diversity." The message was clear. She was not a potential investor, not a peer, but a token, a box to be checked. One of the men, Paul Kirby, whispered loudly enough for her to hear, "It's the diversity quota visit. Smile and nod. She'll be gone by lunch." Sterling, emboldened by his audience, suggested she share your story with the men, a patronizing invitation to perform her identity for their amusement. But just as he was basking in the glow of his own power, the door opened, and a distinguished white man named Robert entered. Sterling shot to his feet, lavishing the newcomer with a warm greeting. Then his eyes met Isabella's. In that moment, he made a choice. He folded his arms across his chest and delivered the final fatal insult. "I don't shake hands with staff." The silence in the room was deafening. Some executives looked away, while others, like Paul Kirby, grinned openly. But Isabella felt no shock. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She had her evidence. With a steady hand, she reached for her phone and sent a single word to her CFO: "Execute." Her departure was as quiet as her arrival. In the cool solitude of the restroom, she placed a call to her CFO, Michael. "Initiate phase 1. Prepare the documentation. I recorded everything." Back in the conference room, Sterling was basking in his perceived victory. Then his assistant, Emily, burst in, her face pale. Apex stock had dropped 1.5% in minutes. A flicker of unease crossed Sterling's face, but he dismissed it as market fluctuation. Isabella returned to the room and, feigning innocence, asked, "Is something wrong?" "Nothing that concerns you," Sterling snapped. "We're done here. We have actual business to attend to." "Of course," Isabella agreed. "I just need one final meeting with you. Alone." In the sterile confines of his corner office, Isabella's demeanor hardened. "I'd like to review my experience here," she began, her voice cold and steady. The 50-minute wait, the condescending presentation, being called staff, being told my only value was as a token, and I recorded every second of it. Just as her words landed, Sterling's phone buzzed. An urgent flag. Major shareholders. He hissed into the receiver. Reed Equity Group? Never heard of them. But as he typed her name into his computer, the blood drained from his face. The screen filled with her credentials. Isabella Reed, founder and CEO, Reed Equity Group, with over $40 billion in managed assets, known for financially crippling companies with toxic leadership. The arrogance was gone, replaced by raw panic. "Ms. Reed, I believe there's been a terrible misunderstanding," he stammered, blocking her path to the door. "There was no misunderstanding," Isabella interrupted, her voice a quiet blade. "You were perfectly clear about who you thought I was and how you treat people you don't value." As she walked toward the elevators, the stock ticker in the lobby flashed bright red. Apex Innovations was down 7% and accelerating. Panic ignited throughout the company as headlines bloomed, detailing Reed Equity Group's history of targeting toxic leadership. In the boardroom, Richard Sterling, a caged animal, paced frantically. Paul Kirby, in a last-ditch effort, suggested they find dirt on Isabella and threaten her. But before Sterling could act, he was cut off. He tried to call Isabella, but her assistant answered with a cool, professional voice. "Ms. Reed only takes scheduled calls from partners, not staff." A news alert hit every screen. Reed Equity Group had issued a public statement about reconsidering investments in companies lacking a demonstrable culture of inclusion. The stock, already in free fall, plummeted by another 15%. Then a calendar invitation chimed on his phone. "Final investment decision meeting. Reed Equity Group. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. You may bring one attorney." The next morning, Sterling arrived at his office to find his board already in a meeting he hadn't been invited to. His assistant handed him a stack of letters from furious shareholders demanding his resignation. His phone rang. It was the board chair. "We've uncovered a series of discrimination complaints filed against you." The voice said, cold as ice. "Complaints that were buried by HR. Why are we just learning about this now?" As the phone call ended, 2 security guards appeared at his door. He was suspended, effective immediately. Sterling and his lawyer arrived at the Reed Equity Group headquarters, with his usual confidence replaced by a tense, haunted look. They were made to wait for 50 minutes, the exact amount of time Isabella had been forced to wait at Apex. When they were finally led into the conference room, Sterling froze. It wasn't a meeting. It was an execution. Isabella Reed sat at the head of a massive table, flanked by her executive team and, to Sterling's horror, representatives from 3 other major investment firms. "This is not about your regret, Richard," Isabella said, her voice cutting through his rehearsed apology. "This is about accountability." She opened a folder. "We weren't just considering a $1.5 billion investment. We were evaluating Apex for a complete acquisition." One of the other investors leaned forward, revealing a coalition of firms with over $150 billion in capital. "Companies with discriminatory leadership will no longer receive a dime from any of us." The air left Sterling's lungs. Isabella hadn't asked for a seat at his table. She had built a bigger one, and he wasn't invited. She slid a thick binder filled with damning evidence across the table. Testimonials from former employees, internal emails, proof of pay disparities. "This is reverse discrimination." Sterling choked out a last desperate gasp. "You're targeting me because I'm a white man." Isabella's expression remained unchanged. She pressed a button. The room speakers played his own voice, dripping with arrogance. "I don't shake hands with staff." The recording continued, each condescending remark, each racist microaggression echoing in the dead silence. When it ended, Sterling sat utterly defeated. "What do you want?" he whispered. Isabella leaned forward, her eyes locking onto his. "I want your resignation effective immediately. You will sign it right now, along with this non-disclosure agreement that forbids you from ever working in this industry again." With a trembling hand, he picked up the pen. As he signed away his career, 2 security officers entered the room. "One more thing," Isabella said, nodding to one of the officers. The guard placed a small, clear plastic bag on the table. "Your badge and access cards, Mr. Sterling." The sound of the plastic crinkling was a final note in his downfall. His reign was over. Justice had been served.